welcome back to Urban Cake Republic. You are so welcome. And today's tutorial are whimsical flowers. These are flowers that look fabric-like, and they're simple to make, and you can use them as toppers on your cake or on cupcakes as well. You can do them any size. I'll be doing them a particular size, but that doesn't matter. It depends on the scale and how big your cakes are and how many you want to actually do. You can use these on the top of wedding cakes. And you can have them cascading all the way downwards down the cakes, or you can just have them as simple cake toppers. It's entirely up to you. Whatever you want to do, you knock yourself out, and I'm just here to show you how. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's going to be very short and quite quick, and hopefully you'll understand a lot of what I'm saying. Well, let's get started. What you're going to need for this tutorial are the following. You're going to need a little bit of water, a little bit of CMC or Tylo powder. It's entirely up to you. It is optional, you don't have to use it, but it's quite nice to use. Hopefully I can get this in focus. There you go, CMC Tylo. Doesn't matter which brand you actually use. Might need a little bit of corn flour to dust your surface when you're working, so it prevents it from sticking to the top. Going to need your trusted palette knife, my favourite tool. Going to need some sugar paste, doesn't matter what brand. Ooh, aka fondant. You're also going to need your rolling pin. It would be nice if you've got spacers on them, but it's optional, you don't really need them. Some of us are really good at measuring by eye, some of us need a little bit of help, but these spacers, when you're rolling out your sugar paste or your fondant, makes it a lot easier to actually measure the height of it. And finally, you're going to need some green sugar paste as well, because we're going to do some leaves a little bit later on. Also, you're going to need a brush. Quite important you have a brush available. Right, first of all, we start kneading our sugar paste or fondant. And we knead it. And I'm just going to add a little bit of Tylo powder or CMC. Just going to add a tiny little bit, a small little palette knife amount of. So it's probably about half or quarter of a teaspoon. I'm just going to put it inside the paste. Now the reason why we use this, as mentioned earlier, is to make sure that once you've actually started making a model, or in this case a flower and what have you, when it dries quite firmly. Still edible, of course, you can eat it, but it makes it stay a lot firmer, as opposed to melting or, you know, cracking and all the rest of it. So I'm just kneading that in. And I'm just going to roll it into a sausage shape, which will be rolled out. Okay, so it's a nice little sausage shape. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my dusting powder. Okay, now you don't need to use one of these containers. You can actually use a pop sock or some tights that you can cut down, put a little bit of elastic band around the edge of it once you put some corn flour in. Okay, you don't need to buy any expensive equipment, or you can just use one of those dusting flour type things with holes in them, little sieve things that you can tap onto your work surface. Alright, but in this case I'm just using a branded duster. Okay, and now I'm going to use my rolling pin with the spacers on it to roll it out. The reason why we have the spacers on the end of the rolling pin is so that it gives us a nice even rolled texture of the sugar paste or fondant that we're using, so we can roll it out and it will be the same height or width, whatever you want to call it, thickness, the same thickness all the way through. So the rose, or rather the whimsical flower that I'm going to be making is quite wide and quite big. Okay, so if you want to get an indication as to what size it is, I will bring out my ruler, which is why we needed it, and I'm just going to cut the top and trim off the bottom. And using my palette knife, I'm just going to trim the edge so we get a rough rectangle. It doesn't matter that it's not equal in width. Some parts might be narrow, some parts might be wider, but I'll give you an average width and length of the actual paste, sugar paste, or fondant. And again, just using the palette knife, go right down and trim off the ends. Alright, so we're left with a long rectangle. Now, as promised, let's see how long this rectangle is. I've got my ruler here, and it's, let's see, 30 centimetres plus 12, so that's 42 centimetres, and what that is in inches approximately, which is what I'm familiar with, so about 17 inches, 16.5, 17 inches. Okay, so that's in length. Width, we are looking at approximately 2 inches, which is roughly 5.5 centimetres. All right, doesn't have to be exactly as I'm doing it, because as you get more experience of doing this, some of the flowers will be smaller, some of them will be bigger, but as I said, the one that I'm doing is for the size of a cake topper, so it will be relatively big. So the next stage is to turn our rectangle over, okay? And so you've got a bit of corn flour at the bottom, on the inside, but that's fine. And then we're going to use our brush and our water, and we're just going to gently put some water on the edge of the sugar paste. Okay, and that's what we're going to use to seal the two sides together. So I'm just putting it on the edge. Okay, so don't put it in the middle, don't put it on the other edge, just on one edge. You can use edible glue, of course, you don't have to use water, but water is the most economical option. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to fold in half, edge to edge, the paste. Okay, so we fold it over, and then we're just going to push down and squeeze it. Push down like we're crimping a pie. So we're sealing the edges. Okay, so you can use your thumb, you can use your fingers, and we're just sealing those edges. If it becomes a little bit sticky, you can use a little bit of corn flour on your fingers. I'll just put some down there. I'll just use the corn flour on my fingers and just press it down. And just on the edges. Now what you'll see is that there's a tube beginning to develop. And that's what we want. So don't press it down in the middle or at the edge, the other edge. Just concentrate on the open edge, the two sides that you sealed together. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to now create my whimsical flower. So I'm going to cut off the edge at an angle towards me, so it's like a V shape almost, and then you'll find that there's a little triangle, so just get rid of the triangle, okay? And that's what happens when you cut off your edge, you just cut off a little triangle, and then I'm going to roll this. Roll and pinching the bottom as I go. Roll and pinch, roll, keep rolling and pinching, rolling and rolling, just going round and rolling and rolling until you get it until a right size, a good size, which is quite large. Okay. Once you're happy with the size that you've managed to get, just trim off. You can now adjust the petals a little bit, and at the bottom you'll see there's quite a bit of excess paste, so all you need to do is use your palette knife or your paring knife, whichever knife you have, and just trim off the bottom. And there you have your first whimsical flower. And it does look like a fabric. Looks like it's just been sewn or quilted. I'm just going to put that down to one side. The final thing we're going to do to finish off our topper are the leaves. Okay, so what we've got is a small amount of green fondant or sugar paste. And again, we're going to roll it out. Still using the spacers on the rolling pin. Of course, you don't need them. You can actually do it freehand. And using my palette knife or a paring knife or a pizza wheel, very simply cut out the shape of a leaf. And of course, depending on the size of your flowers or the topper or your cake, or even if it's just a small little cupcake. There you go. And there we have a nice leaf shape. I'll show that to you. Got a leaf shape. Of course, you can do your leaf any shape you like, doesn't matter. Again, once again, it's one of those things that are lovely that you don't have to sort of be scientific about it. So that's just an approximate shape. I'm just going to smooth out the ends with my finger, because sometimes when your knife isn't really that sharp, you can just smooth it out with your finger. And then we're just going to do a vein in there. So using our palette knife, just very gently, not too hard, just put a line in the centre of the leaf. So if I show you that, you should be able to see a line in the centre of the leaf. And if you want to, you can do other veins in the leaf as well. So just using your palette knife just to go up. And it doesn't have to be a realistic leaf, that's the beauty of it. Because your flower is whimsical, the leaf can be whimsical as well. So you can see. Oh, it just dropped. Put it back on again. There you go. Let's bring it out. There you go. You can see. That's a leaf. Yes. Okay, and you can do quite a few of those that you can surround the cake topper. And that's the end of that tutorial. And I'll show you at the end what you can achieve. Hope you have a really good time. It was a very, very quick tutorial, and hopefully once you master it, you'd be able to do it as well. Thank you very, very much, and see you again. Bye.